And I'm sitting there in the bar going, what the fuck? This guy's just taken my girlfriend home. What the hell? So I ran out of the bar eventually, and they were about a block and a half away. And I went up to Alex Chilton and I pushed him into stabbing him. And I said, you motherfucker. And I just totally, and Alex Chilton is a little miniature person. Was a very slight guy. And short, and I'm not giant, but I'm way bigger than him. And I push him in the street, and I'm really just saying, I'm gonna fuck you up, man. I'm not like a fighter either, so this is just the booze talking. And so, my wife got me out of there, and Alex went his own way. And the next morning, I woke up, and it was one of the worst hangover days I ever had. And part of it was that I had been so mean to this guy that I liked.
I'm so thrilled to bring up our guest. He is the one and only Robert Duncan. What's up?
I am so jazzed to be with you. Look at, there you go. I'm jazzed.
Right?
I love it.
Yes.
Your audience has never even heard of that, but I'm happy to be here with you guys. Really, really fun for me. But I'm not the one and only. I'm telling you, when my parents named me, they must have looked up, okay, what's the most common first and last names, in America in that year. And so all my life, there's always been another Robert Duncan, or usually about 10 of them in wherever I am, including originally some of my books were listed in the kind of index of books under the famous poet Robert Duncan.
I was going to say, I know there's a poet.
That's
That's the only other one I know.
So I'm not one of a kind. I wish I was, but
you're the only one of you.
I'm the only one of me right now in your wonderful show.
Yes,
that's what counts for us.
Exactly. And we're so excited about this. This is amazing. And okay, we kind of wanted to start by saying some of our recent guests. We had Mark Farner on recently, who had a Boy Howdy can, and we just had Joe Bouchard, and he was wearing a Boy Howdy t-shirt. So we wanted to know, what is the strangest Boy Howdy merch that you've ever seen?
Oh, that's a good question. I've interviewed Mark Farner, by the way, and Joe. I know Joe Bouchard. He's a wonderful guy. I know his brother too.
Lovely.
Of course.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah, my wife and I went on our honeymoon with Blue Oyster Cult to Europe, and
as you do,
Yeah. So weird Boy Howdy stuff. My office at Creem, it was just a big room, and I could see into the mail room where all the T-shirts, there were Frisbees, there were koozies, things for beers. There were nothing too weird. There were no condoms or edible panties or any of that stuff.
The night is young,
That's true. So yeah, T-shirts, living right next to the mailroom where they had all the T-shirts. I never had to do laundry. I would just grab a new T-shirt every day. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I wish I had a nasty tale about merch, but I don't.
That's fine. I was going to say, I bet a lot of people also have the tattoo. There has to be, right?
That's that. There. I didn't know it really until about, 5 or 6 years ago. So we put on concerts in San Francisco. My company, I have a design and advertising company, and we put on shows on our roof. We have fantastic bands, and this guy showed up from Portland, and he said, I know you from Creem. I'm a big Creem fan. And I'm like, oh yeah. He says, let me show you this. And he, pulls up his sleeve, and there's his Boy Howdy tattoo. And so we took a picture, me and him, with that. And that guy moved to Asheville, North Carolina, where my son moved. And one day my son called me up and said, hey, I met this really cool musician guy. He's I said, well, tell me his name. He says, oh, you wouldn't know him. And I said, well, give me a shot. And so he told me the name. I said, God damn. I said, that name sounds familiar. So I looked around on my computer and I found a picture of me and Morgan Gear, who plays under the name Drunken Prayer. And I just sent that to my son. I said, there you go, buddy. So yes, there are tattoos, and we used to get, I mean, this is before email. So we would get envelopes with little snapshots of people's tattoos from time to time. Tattoos weren't what they are today. Not everybody and their, assistant principal didn't have tattoos like they do now. But
I don't know what you mean. We don't have that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We're
I have one modest tattoo, but
what is it?
Boy howdy on your back this big.
It's on my shoulder. It was a thing. It commemorates the marriage of my wife and I 100 years ago. But I got it
on a solid 100 though.
I got it from this guy Lyle Tuttle, and he was in the 60s. Now I got it in the 70s, but he was in the 60s. He was the most famous tattooist. He tattooed Janis Joplin and Grace Slick and all of San Francisco. He was a guy in San Francisco, and he tattooed all of San Francisco rock stars. And so I thought, well, shit, if I get this tattoo, I really want to get it from Lyle Tuttle. So I did. I went down to his office above the bus station, big, like a 3-story walk up above the bus station. It was, this is the days when tattoo parlors were still sleazy. And so it was
they still are.
all the better. And also Lyle told me, I made an appointment with him, a couple of days before. He says, hey, do me a favor. Will you call me? We were going to meet at noon. He says, call me at like 11 o'clock. Make sure I'm awake. So, I mean,
usually
look
a
up
good
Lyle
benefit.
Tuttle, and you'll see he's quite the guy.
Heck yeah. Okay.
All right, let's pivot a little from that. But so we've actually had quite a few guests on our show from Detroit, and we love asking them about, the music scene when they were growing up and being part of that scene. But we're curious, what was the music scene like in Sheboygan? Because that's not something that we get to ask about. Like, it's a really specific pocket of area.
Well, I'm sure it was pop music and lots of German accordions and stuff. But I moved out of Sheboygan when I was 6 months old. So I had already started smoking and I was hitchhiking. But I went down to so I went down to Chicago with apparently with my parents, and they kind of kept us in the house all the time. So I never saw any music there. But then we moved to Minnesota. The music in Minnesota, there were no replacements. There was no Prince. There was none of that. This is whatever it is, late 50s, early 60s. But it was where I had a older half brother, and I have a version of him in the novel Loudmouth, which is technically a novel, but really based on fact. And but he was like this, hot rod gangster, kind of classic 50s guy with his hot rod car. And as I say in the book, it wasn't one of those, anal retentive hot rod cars like you see nowadays, and the little parades and shit. His was all dinged up, and it was a 1932 Ford or something. Wow. And it went, it just went like hell. And of course, and I've discovered under his bed when I was a kid, his machine gun, his 45 pistol, and all this stuff. So he was kind of the real deal. I was fascinated, as you can imagine, as a young kid might be. But just once in a blue moon, my mother would say, hey, would you take the kids, say to him, I got something to do. Would you take the kids to get, dinner? And he'd take us down to the drive-in in downtown little town we lived in, and driving he drove through the town 100 miles an hour, and he had blasting out of the dashboard this music. It was just terrifying. It was kind of fit with his terrifying driving, and it was Elvis Presley's "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." That sounds tame today, but it was like, it was so scary to, whatever I was, 8 years old or something. But that was my first exposure to music. Then I moved to New York, where, at 12 years old, I saw the first show by Sly and the Family Stone. I saw the Yardbirds when they had Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck in them at a place that later became the Fillmore East, but Bill Graham, I read later, was trying it out as a possible East Coast outpost for his Fillmore empire. And I saw the Beatles at Shea Stadium in 1966 from the press box, which was I had a friend whose father was kind of Irish mafia in New York, and he said, "Hey, Daddy, could you get me and my friends tickets to the Beatles?" Well, there were no tickets left, but there was a press box, and this is what the scene was in those days. There was no press there. Press didn't give a shit about the Beatles, really. When they were blocking the streets with fans, that was one thing. But sending a guy to cover a rock and roll concert, not going to happen. So we had the press box all to ourselves at the Beatles at Shea Stadium, and to me, they were the godhead. I talk about that in Loudmouth too. That was this. You can't even imagine. I don't know what bands they were for. That was for you, but bands where you're just like, they're not even a band.
It's still the Beatles. Like, it's always the Beatles. It's the Beatles.
Oh, that's fucked up.
I'm just saying, like, if I had a time machine and if I could have gone to that Shea Stadium concert, that would be like, because I don't think I would go to Woodstock because of the bathroom situation and the food situation. But I would go to Shea Stadium, especially in a press box.
Well, I wish I'd known we had room.
Oh, well, if the technology gets invented, then I'll see you there.
We'll see
Please do. Yeah, Woodstock. I remember being in Christ, what's the place? There was a famous clothing shop that everybody went to, and you'd run into celebrities there. I remember scooting in and out the door. She was scooting out, I was scooting in. Was Janis Joplin. Speaking of Janis Joplin, but and I remember going there and first seeing the poster for Woodstock, and I'm thinking, I don't like that band. I do like that band. I made the consumer decision. I didn't have a lot of money either. I didn't have any money. And I thought, well, shit, whatever it was, $12 or $20, it was really something seems ridiculously cheap. And I'm like, I don't think that's the best use of my consumer dollars. Because, there were some corny bands on it, like, Sha Na Na and shit. I forget who else. I forget who else I didn't like.
Man.
But it just outweighed the others, and I thought, well, I've seen a lot of these other guys too, and I'll see them again. I saw Hendrix many times, So I mean, that was just the era. I went to shows. I went to music. I saw there's nobody in that era that I didn't see.
I have to say, like, one of my favorite videos to go back and watch is Joe Cocker's performance with a little help from my I just can't even believe that was like real. I don't know what I would have done seeing it live.
He was great, and I was thinking about the other day because one of the guys in his band, Chris Spedding, is still alive, and I saw that he was on Facebook. Oh, you want to be friends with Chris Spedding? And I'm thinking, yeah, I do.
I suppose.
And he was a great guitar player. So. And even Jimmy Page, I believe, played on that first record. That first record of Joe Cocker had the world's greatest band, and it was very guitar. It sounds like Jimmy Page, all of it, and that was a great record. That was a great record, and kind of redoing a little help from my friends in the way they rearranged it, and it was like. Okay, that's because it seems like kind of a light song, but they turned it heavy. It was so cool,
magical.
So he was great. I saw him a bunch of times, and I worked on a when I was in college. I worked on a show. I was just an usher at a show, a live show in New York, down in the Village at a club called the Village Gate, which was a famous place for a lot of Thelonious Monk and some of the greats of jazz played. And they did a thing, National Lampoon, which, the National Lampoon magazine. Anyways, they were getting into live events, and they decided to do this, write and produce this show. And it was a kind of a parody of Woodstock. And so I needed some work. And so I got the job as an usher, and the goddamn show was fantastic. And speaking of Joe Cocker, it was John Belushi. Nobody heard of him. He was doing his Joe Cocker thing that he did, that he later did on SNL.
Right?
And but he was doing it there every night, and that dude was the funniest dude ever. Christopher Guest was on the cast. It was like, and none of these people, they were unknowns, they were fantastic. What's his name? I'll think of him, but it's not. There was 3 or 4 really cool artists, but one of them was John Belushi, famous for his Joe Cocker impression.
Yeah.
And in fact, the end of the first half of the show, it was the second half was all about this death stock thing that they that the mock Woodstock, and it would end with John Belushi tying off with a microphone cord and falling to the ground and then shooting up on the ground. So Lemmings, exactly. It was called National Lampoon's Lemmings.
Oh,
it
thanks,
was
Tim.
great.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, obviously we were talking about like Detroit, New York,
Detroit.
New York, Sheboygan. But what city do you feel like had the richest musical identity?
Well, there are cities, and one of them is Detroit. And when I finally did go to Detroit and live there and work for Creem, it was like wow. So it has its own culture. And you really could tell, and there's other cities that have their own culture, and so that means they have their own music. New Orleans is another one. New York is so diverse that is so cosmopolitan that what is New York music? You'd be hard pressed to say. It could be anything. But Detroit, Detroit had 2 strains. It had the Motown strain, and it had the Stooges and the MC5 and that whole kind of heavy. And it had.
She's a bit of a fan.
But he was from Arizona. But
I know Detroit stories.
I'll give it to him. But yeah, he started. He really got his break in Detroit. But I have a thing about that in the book where I talk about, I was watching in New York, they had this, local independent station, and every Labor Day, they would put on this cheesy, really low production values concert. It would come from, this year it came from Detroit, and I was watching, and this guy, and Stooges were playing, and MC5 weren't playing. They were too hot to handle, I guess, for TV in those days. But there was this guy, Alice Cooper, playing, who, again, they're all like brand new. And I remember him trying to hypnotize the audience with a pocket watch. And I thought, oh, come on, that is so corny. But at the time, well, at the time, I was just a snotty New York person. I had completely transferred all my affection to New York, and I hadn't gone to Detroit yet. And I remember seeing Creem in New York and thinking, oh, that's just that fucking Detroit magazine. That's not a real music magazine. But Detroit absolutely has its own musical culture. Motown conquered the world. The Stooges and the MC5 and Alice Cooper, in a sense, conquered the world, but in a subtler sense as influences, I think. And so Detroit's, of the places I've lived, Detroit's one you can identify. New Orleans is also a place you can identify, but I've never lived there. But I have lived in Memphis, and
me too.
Yeah, my ancient mother is wonderful. Ancient mother is from Memphis. And so we used to always spend summers there. And I remember being there when the big record that came out. By the time I was kind of had a musical consciousness, was the letter, "Give me ticket for an airplane," sung by Alex Chilton. It was called the Box Tops, the band, but it was sung by Alex Chilton, and that was the big, and the other big, and that was actually a Memphis production. So they had a little bit of something still by the mid '60s, but it was dying out, Alex Chilton, I later got to be, I had a lovely encounter with years later in Detroit when we were both relatively grown. But my wife was a photographer, and she had gone to, there was a famous event. There's going to be some people who remember it, and it has gained fame, the first Rock Writers Convention. And she was the only, and it took place in Memphis because it was run by, it was Stax Volt, and their Ardent label, that's what they put Big Star on. But my wife was the only photographer there. And it was a whole bunch of, just scamming rock critics from around the country. And I think it really worked well, except Big Star didn't really go anywhere. Big Star was Alex Chilton's really wonderful band. I'm a big, huge fan. But she was taking pictures there, and her boyfriend was a famous rock critic, got really drunk. I wasn't there. I was just a year before I entered the sordid world of rock criticism. So I missed one of the most sordid episodes. So anyways, her boyfriend got drunk, and Alex Chilton was chatting with my wife, Ronnie, and said, "Oh, will you want me to give you a ride back to your hotel?" And she says, "Yeah, I do." And so anyways, Alex Chilton had a big crush on my wife, and before we were married, so when he came to town, and when we were living in New York, and he came and met us at this bar we hung out at, Bells of Hell. A lot of rock stars hung out. I mean, it was a dive bar, but a lot of musicians, some of them stars, hung out there. And I remember I was completely shit-faced, and we're sitting at a tall table with Alex Chilton and my wife and a couple other folks. And my wife is saying, it's like the bar used to let us stay past closing time. It's 5 a.m., let's go home. And I'm like, well, fuck that shit, and I'm feeling one of the, I need more booze at 5. I still need more booze. And so Alex said, "Oh, I'll take you home." And I'm going, good. Okay. Fuck off, go. And so they walked out of the bar, and our house was about 3 blocks away. And I'm sitting there in the bar, I'm going, what the fuck? This guy's just taken my girlfriend home. What the hell? So I ran out of the bar eventually, and they were about a block and a half away. And I went to Alex Chilton, and I pushed him into Sixth Avenue, and I said, "You motherfucker!" And I just totally, and Alex Chilton is a little miniature person. He was a very slight guy, and sure, and I'm not giant, but I'm way bigger than him. And I push him in the street, and I'm really just saying, "I'm gonna fuck you up, man." I'm not like a fighter either, so this is just the booze talking. And so my wife got me out of there, and Alex went his own way. And the next morning I woke up, and it was one of the worst hangover days I ever had. And part of it was that I had been so mean to this guy that I liked. So that's how Memphis hooks up with New York via Alex, the bridge of Alex Chilton, and me throwing him into Sixth Avenue.
Well, did you guys make up at least?
Well, I don't ever remember seeing him again,
Okay.
I think he gave up on my wife after that,
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think she was my wife. I think she was my girlfriend at the time, but yeah, I think
one of you guys got the tattoo, so it worked out for you,
But yeah, Alex Chilton had a crush.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing. That was fantastic. Thank you.
And she has these photos. We get calls. She has these photos, and she's kind of not big into promoting herself, and in fact, I went through her boxes of photos, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? You got what are these photos? Well, that's Alex Chilton, the Rock Writers Convention. I was the only photographer there, and I'm like, dude, we can't leave these in a box in the shed. we've got to
put them out there.
So I've gotten her to over the last 5 or so years, I've gotten her to kind of take care of the stuff. And so that Big Star movie, which was really great. What's it called? Did you see it? Anyways, great movie.
Probably, actually.
Yeah.
Probably.
It was really good. Anyways, it starts out with 28 of her photos just kind of tumbling by. And
oh, wow. Okay.
It's been in a bunch. Her photos have been in a bunch of movies now.
Nice.
So
that's amazing.
I'm so proud.
Well, kind of to go off of that, do you think it's more difficult to be a rock star in the era of, now with social media that, everybody knows your every move and you got eyes on you all times, or in what we could refer to as the golden era, which is, what there's this myth and this ethos about like being a rock star?
Yeah. I think, it depends on how much you put yourself onto social media. If you're, one of those guys, but to me, you were a god back in the, that Almost Famous has that corny scene where he says, "I'm a golden god."
I'm a golden god.
But they really were, and music, rock music was the center of culture. It wasn't just, well, let's see, we'll do video games and then we'll do some music and then we'll do this. It was, it was music, and you had to align yourself with a tribe of, here's the music I like, and fuck you if you don't like it, and I hate your tribe, and well, actually, it started out we were all together, and then we tribalized,
went separate ways there.
Yeah, but so I gotta think. I can't imagine some of those people. When I started out, I wanted to be a rock star. And I played in bands since I was like 12 years old. And again, I managed to become this huge asshole drinker and drug taker without being a rock star. I can't imagine. And in those days, rock stars became rock stars, not when they're 32, it's not, Diplo or something. It's, you were becoming a rock star at 17 or 18, or, George Harrison was 19 when he played on Ed Sullivan with the Beatles, which was the breakout show in America for the band. And so I always thought, when I got shit, I'm gesturing too much. I'm knocking over my own microphone. But when I got to be when I was in rock bands and I got to be beyond 19, I thought, fuck it, I'm over the hill. I'm 21. It's useless. I got to go get a real job, because I used to judge myself against George Harrison. So I think the pressure on those guys was just unimaginable. Imagine having that adulation and money and I don't even. So I think harder back then, because it was there was so much more and different pressure and cultural pressure, and now you could kind of be off in a musical niche or a social media niche for that matter, and not feel it as much.
Yeah. Well, kind of like to follow up on that, bands like, Alice Cooper and Kiss have had this longevity that's just like absolutely insane. So what do you think bands from today's era can take from legends like Alice Cooper and Kiss?
Wow. I at the time, it was again unimaginable that Kiss would last for, what has it been, 40 years or something? Something. It's at least 40 years, closing in on 50. And Alice Cooper, definitely over 50 years. It never occurred to them or their fans that this would go on forever, but it has. I'm not entirely sure why. And if I think somebody like, Taylor Swift, people who are writing, music that connects at a really deep level. I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan, but I see that, she connects, or somebody like Angel Olsen, or I think those people are their work is going to endure. And so that they will endure to a degree. And also you gotta, to me, you gotta innovate. I mean, those Beatles records, whenever I heard a new Beatles single, it would be like, wait, is that the Beatles? Because they would change their vocal sound, they would change their guitar sounds, their keyboard sounds. The arrangements would be different. The mixes would be different. I remember reading a thing about how whenever they did a song, when they were doing an album, each song, they would just zero out the mixer after the one song, so that they'd have to figure something out again for the next song.
That's very cool.
So I think if you write, serious music, and it doesn't have to be serious boring, it can still be serious yelling and screaming, but if innovation, freshness, novelty, that's very big to me.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what, but now Kiss and Alice Cooper are just performing their past. They're nostalgia acts, It's funny to see a Kiss crowd now, and they're all it's all guys in their 50s, gray-haired, fat, bald, great guys in their 50s,
Fair enough.
More power to them.
but Alice, he didn't just put out the new album, so I'm definitely curious to see if he'll tour with some of the new stuff or what's going to happen. I mean, there's some good songs on Detroit Stories, but yeah, I mean, I do go to see him play $1 Billion Babies, I just
yeah, he came on and played Detroit Stories all night. You'd be happy, you'd be satisfied. I don't think so.
I just want to stare at him. I don't care. Just put your head in the guillotine. Let's bring out Frank and Alice, and let's.
Now, how did you get into Alice?
Okay, so I got into Alice pretty late in life. I actually saw him as the opening act for Motley Crue. So that was only about 7 or 8 years ago. But it went from 0 to 100 really quick, because I'm not necessarily a fan of people just because of their music. I find myself to be a fan of people because of who they are as humans. Yeah. And the first time I got to interview Alice Cooper was about 6 years ago. And he was just so sensational. Everything that he does is every word he speaks. I'm just was clinging to every word. And then I felt like I got the opportunity to build a friendship with him over the past couple of years. I've hosted 7 or 8 panels for him at Comic-Cons now. Yeah. So that's just what makes me a fan, is just he's such a good person. He genuinely cares about his fans, and I can't say that for everybody. So
and he has that charity thing he does down in Arizona, or is it in LA?
Yes. And then they also do the thing in Maui with Shep, he's a very charitable man. Yeah. Christmas pudding. Is that what you're?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, you're a good fan. Wow.
I mean, I have maybe 5 or 6 Alice Cooper tattoos. They're all over the place.
Wow.
But yeah.
I never interviewed him back in the day. We used to cover him a lot in Creem, but Lester Bangs knew him and would go down and talk to him, and so Creem was a big supporter. The magazine I work for was a big supporter of Alice, and a big supporter of Detroit groups, or Detroit a lot allied groups. So, but and Alice kind of fit the first thing I saw of Alice was that it was the Pretties for You album. I don't know which was the one that they really were in drag, or at least there was no band that had kind of gone so far in drag as them, and I was like, oh yeah, boom. I was this aspiring rocker who just wanted to fuck shit up, and so these guys, I thought, that's just gonna blow minds, and so I spent more time on the album cover than I did on the album, but I just thought, okay, this is so wonderfully outrageous.
Yeah, and I think that he accredits a lot of that to his manager Shep, who worked with like Pink Floyd. He worked with Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and like he's amazing. But like one of my favorite stories about like when they started performing in different bars and clubs was, they wanted the attention, but they didn't want it to be too obvious. So one of their first performances, they performed in these see-through outfits, and Shep called the cops on them. So the cops would show up so they would get press. But by the time that the cops got there, they were so overheated and sweaty that the outfits were no longer see-through. But they still got the press. But yeah, I think Shep is a genius. The two of them together, it's just absolute magic. So
my wife has a really nice portrait of Alice done in Shep Gordon's house in New York, his brownstone in New York. It's on her website. She's RonnieHoffman.com.
I'm definitely going to check that out right after this. But Danica, do you want to ask one more question? I'll ask one more and then we'll play the game.
All right. So my next question is a little bit of a maybe, I don't know, controversial is the right. We'll find out. I mean, it might be. I don't know. But so you've been cited a number of times about your quote about heavy metal.
Right.
So just for people who aren't aware, I love this quote too, because regarding heavy metal in your book, The Noise, it is dismal, abysmal, terrible, horrible, and stupid music, barely music at all. So my question is, are there some bands that you still feel fit this label?
Well,
especially current ones, I'd love to know. Well, because I'm sure I'd agree.
Let me clarify this. I didn't know people talked about this, and then I started going on podcasts, and I've seen it. I saw it quoted also in print somewhere, and I'm like, wow. And I didn't bother looking up. I didn't even know where it came from, and I thought it might have been from Creem. And so finally I looked it up, and it was from a book I wrote, a nonfiction book called The Noise, and I said, boy, that sounds like it really sounded like something where I would go, it's this bad thing, but, but it's like, it's only rock and roll, but I like it kind of thing. Yeah. Well, exactly. The quote goes on to go, but sometimes I really need it, so it's people use it and they get all indignant. How can you insult heavy metal? Imagine that I have to protect heavy metal, but so it was. Anyways, it wasn't actually. Yeah, I love some dumb, loud, dismal music, but are there bands that are like? Oh shit! I don't know. I wrote a book about Kiss. I wrote the first biography of Kiss, but I thought they were a dumb band, and I thought it was kind of, their music was not so good, and I was horrified when I went to the first Kiss show I saw, which was when they were an opening act, and they were, they had all their lights and their sign and all this stuff that I thought it's like fucking Broadway show or some shit. It's like, it just seems so inauthentic to me. That's, okay, I've mellowed over the years, but
you've mellowed.
Yeah, but I was, I was indignant for my own kind of music, whatever that was, kind of basic rock and roll, So I'm like, how dare these guys have a sign with lights in it?
And the makeup.
Did I answer your question, Danica?
I think that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
Okay.
We're open for interpretation. But before we go on to the game that we have, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention your book or your novel, Loudmouth. And when we were researching for this, we found out that you're actually a finalist for the 2020 Indie Award for Literary Fiction. Yeah. So we wanted to know, what has it been like to receive so much positive feedback for your debut novel? I mean, that has to feel really good.
Well, first of all, that award thing, I'm like, what is this? I had such low expectations for it. I've written, I guess, maybe 4 books, and publishing, except for the Kiss book, which sold hundreds of thousands of copies and supported me and my wife for about 3 years. Books don't sell shit. It's just, and book publishers don't have any money. It's kind of a weirdly old-fashioned industry still, and I've been involved in it for 30 years. But so when I saw that I was up for this award, best adult fiction? I'm like, what? and then I see the list, and one of the 10 people on the list is Elena Ferrante, who wrote My Brilliant Friend, the Italian writer, and My Brilliant Friend, and they made a really great, I think, HBO series out of the first. It's like 3 books, and Elena Ferrante sells billions of copies of books. I thought, well, first of all, I was so thrilled to be in the company of Elena Ferrante, who I think is great. But I thought, well, I have no chance of winning now. But
never know.
So who knows? It's been great, and I also got one of the other. It's been nice, the nice notices, and some of them better than others. But I also, one night, I'm sitting on the couch, just minding my own business, having a cocktail and watching TV late at night, and I get an email, and I'm like, it's from somebody I don't know, and it's about the Loudmouth book, and I'm like, what is this shit, So I look at it, and this guy says, well, hey, I love your book. I'm a screenwriter in LA, and I want to talk to you about doing a movie of this. Ooh. And I'm like, this has got to be a joke. That's how I react to getting, some renown. I'm thinking, okay, this is just a joke or some jerk off. So I look the guy up, and I'm like, holy shit, he's like, a big deal, hot up and coming, screenwriter. He's got some big deal movie coming out. It was supposed to come out this spring with big deal people. I'm like, and he's like 33 years old. So I like young people. I prefer them to old people. So that to me is young. And so I'm like, holy shit. And I got on the phone with him the next day, and we talked for hours, and he had a really great concept of how to kind of shape it and trim it down. So what I'm waiting for, and he says, and I'll have to buy the rights to your life, and probably should buy the rights to your wife's life and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, this is what I want to see this. So that's kind of the most astonishing honor, but followed closely by this, best fiction thing.
Well, that's congratulations. Yeah, that is amazing.
Sounds
hopefully
awesome.
We'll see that soon.
It's crazy.
Fingers and toes crossed. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I was telling he's very interested in the New York section of the book, living next door to Lester Bangs and pushing Alex Chilton in the street.
So when you were actually writing this novel, was that something that you visualized as you were writing it? Like, hey, I could see a live interpretation of this.
Never. I thought I said, this guy's high. I thought, there's no way. I remember saying, you get so close. I thought this, he's either a scammer or he's a high or something. And, but when you're that close to a book and there's in your head, there's such a giant mess because you've seen every bit of the mess as you've been going along and trying to turn it into something somebody could or would read. And I thought, wow, here's one book nobody's ever going to be able to turn into a movie, which is, it's nice if they can, because maybe that's a way to make money in publishing, because you don't make it mostly any other way. Yeah. So I forget what your question was, but
you answered it.
How cool is that? Yeah, is the question.
So look for the movie. There's gonna be, and my friend my good friend who's a screenwriter down in LA says, well, he says, don't expect anything to really happen before 10 years, because he says I've had deals that the day before shooting was starting, I get a call saying, okay, it's all off. So.
Entertainment world, we love it. But you let us know from now until 10 years, Danica will come walk the red carpet.
Well,
Robert,
I won't be here in 10 years. So, but I'll put it in my will that the kid cadet.
I'll come dressed as
Danica
you.
Chanel. You have to come to my funeral first. Then you get to go on the red carpet.
Perfect. We're available.
Can I borrow the hat? Is my only question.
Ooh, I want the sunglasses.
Yeah, you could inherit the hat. Yeah.
Fabulous.
You heard it here first.
And the guitar. The guitar too.
the guitar. Can you see that it says Way Out West on it?
I can't see that far, no, but
A friend of mine, it's another music connection, but a guy I know, his brother-in-law died in a motorcycle accident like a year or so ago, and he knew I knew something about. I'm in my studio. I have a studio here, and I play guitar. I write songs. I still, now I know I'm not going to be a rock star, but I think maybe I'll sell some of these songs. And
it's never too late.
I have done some jingles, but so they called me up and said, "Hey, would you come look at my brother-in-law's collection of guitars and you tell us if they're worth anything?" And they were all really. So I did. I love this guy, and I went over there and I'm like, "These are all, they're kind of imitations of other guitars. They're really not worth anything, and they're not worth much for sure." And he had, he had 20 or 30 of them. And I said, I'll tell you the strange thing. The one I think that is worth the most and that I'd be most interested in is this acoustic guitar, which says Way Out West on it. And it's like cowboys and aliens. And it's made by the famous guitar maker Gretsch. They also make drums, but Gretsch, that's what George Harrison played. And I'm like, so it's like reasonably well made and it's really goofy. And I'm saying, and so they said, okay, well, for coming down here, we'll give it to you. So
that's awesome.
I never play it. It's my favorite.
You don't play it?
No, but it looks great.
It does. It's aesthetic. We love it. It's perfect. Do you have a guitar that you do like to play? And do you prefer like acoustic over electric or? Oh
yeah, I play electric. I'm a bad enough guitar player that I like to play electric, and I play with lots of distortion so that it hides all the errors. I have a Gibson SG that I play.
Okay, nice.
I'm looking at it through here. And then I have a really great old Yamaha acoustic, but too hard to play. I play the Gibson SG, and it's kind of lighter weight, and it gives me lots of distortion to hide behind. Yeah.
Sure. I have my little baby Taylor when I do actually play because it's small and it's
Taylors are so beautiful.
I have my little Martin backpacker that's barely got a body to it. I love it.
Oh yeah, I have one of those. I have one.
I love it. It's so cute and tiny. And I have tiny little raccoon hands, so my little raccoon hands can like fit around the neck really well. So.
Well, I bought it and I never used it because I put too heavy strings on it. And so one day I was recording a song and I thought, let me try this backpacker thing on it. And it sounded like a banjo. And I thought, oh shit, that's really kind of cool. So the one time I used it, the song is on my website. So you can actually hear the backpacker as a banjo.
Love that. I want to learn how to play the banjo, and I want Steve Martin to teach me. That's
insanely hard. My husband bought me a mandolin for my birthday last year.
Yeah.
I tried so hard to learn it. It is it's very hard.
Because your fingers are too close together on the thing, or what's so hard about it?
I think it's that the chords are like
that shit, yeah.
What is that?
That makes no sense to my fingers, especially, coming from like here's my G. It's very easy. And then it's just like a G is like I put one finger, or I have to like bar over here and then play the one over here. And it's hard. Sorry.
But you should remind yourself of when you started playing guitar and the guitar seemed that hard, it still seems hard to me.
I was 13 when I started playing guitar. I don't remember that.
Oh, man. Yeah. All right. So, Robert, we have a game. This is a game of Would You Rather. There is no wrong answers. And let's just go for it.
Kill or marry, kill.
I don't think that's
one of them. We could take it that way, but it's a little different.
So we're going to bring up the graphic. Danica, do you want to read the first one?
Let's go for it. All right. Would you rather have Loudmouth be re-recorded by Gilbert Gottfried or be recorded by Fran Drescher?
Well, I think first of all, there is an audio book of it, and
that's why it would be a re-recording
in this room, and I'm quite proud of it. And I would pick Fran Drescher.
Oh yeah, good choice.
Here's why.
Okay.
because she was in Spinal Tap, which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Absolute
So I think
11.
she's really funny, and her character was based on a woman named Susan Blonde, who was a publicist and maybe the head of publicity eventually at what was Columbia Records, is now Sony, and she was famous. She had that accent, and she was a character like Fran Drescher has played. So she's playing somebody I know. So that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
And I don't find her accent annoying. I find it charming. Gilbert Gottfried, on the other hand, I feel might alienate some reader.
It could turn into the Aristocrats, so you never know.
Funny. I recently saw the Aristocrats. I had it on.
Oh man!
I had it on my list forever, and I just said, let's watch this Aristocrats. It's supposed to be so funny.
Yeah,
it was okay,
Yeah,
but
okay.
he's funny, but his voice could be a little grating, and I like Fran Drescher better.
Fran, it is.
I like
There's
it.
no wrong answers. We love Fran.
Exactly.
All right. Here's the next one. Would you rather? Have to dress like Ziggy Stardust once a week, or have to dress like Ace once a week?
Well, that's
Makeup and all.
That's simple to me. I would
Ziggy.
Ziggy Stardust for sure. Much cooler costume. Come on. I mean,
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I
Much cooler
picked
costume.
Star Child
You know.
with one. Okay.
Ace's costume is a little too obvious. It's like, okay, you're a spaceman, I get it, but Ziggy Stardust, you're like a spaceman.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
think it's a good pairing.
Okay. Fair enough. Danica, next one.
All right. Would you rather play a guitar that shoots fire or put your head in the Alice Cooper guillotine?
Oh, this is a tough one. Can I call what are they?
Phone a friend.
Can I call a source? Call a friend. That was
Of course. Of course.
I would pick shoot fire, because even though that's Ace, if I'm imagining I'm in my Ziggy Stardust costume when I'm shooting fire with Ace's car. Is that fair enough?
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm not overly afraid of Alice Cooper's guillotine, but let's just say I'm a little afraid of it.
Little.
Like when they fuck up and they let the actual blade come down.
I mean, it's one hell of a trick, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I got to put my head in it, and it was terrifying, but
yeah, it would be a great selfie, and when they make that wax figure of your head.
Oh, love that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
But I just, that I may have a phobia of guillotines. I never thought about it before, but
Okay.
Which would be fair.
Yeah, very
Valid
fair.
fair. Valid fair.
Okay, so Ziggy Stardust with the guitar that shoots fire. All right, so far so good. Here's the next one. Would you rather, be a roadie for Iron Maiden or be a roadie for George Strait?
And I have a fun story behind this if you need help with this one.
I don't know. Somebody the other day was we were sitting around drinking whiskey in my backyard. My brother has had his shot, so my brother who lives in Boston was out, and we had my kind of son-in-law. He's not really legal, but he's my son-in-law, and we were sitting around, and they were talking about Iron, or one of them was talking about how great Iron Maiden secretly is, and I thought, really? I think I'd choose Iron Maiden. Here's why. I mean, and I think George Strait is maybe more music I'd be interested in, but I'd be afraid that I would have to encounter a whole bunch of crazy conservative,
Yes.
people backstage who hate Obama or hate Biden or whatever. And, I won't even mention the name of the former guy who was in
Don't bother.
the White House. But so I would fear
Voldemort.
George Strait, though, he's not like a right-wing guy. He's like kind of a progressive dude, right? Am I right?
So I will say the reason that my husband is actually the one that designed this question. Yeah. And it's because he used to be, he would do like load-ins and stuff for giant concerts. Like he loaded in Madonna's, I don't remember which one, but where she has like 30 fucking trucks that load in.
Every show?
He knows,
Yeah, exactly.
He knows offhand that the Iron Maiden set is I think it takes 2 jumbo jets on top of all of the other trucks to load in their set. But George Strait and like country stars, he was like, I will take a country show any day as a roadie because you do nothing.
Oh, damn.
You do absolutely fuck all.
That's
and
really,
you just get to hang out and chill.
That's really great because I didn't even think about the work.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about the partying. You know,
exactly. It's like, do you go with the music that you prefer or do you go with the easier job? Like, that's the question.
Good
the
point.
real question here.
Good question.
I think your husband has really posed a dilemma for the ages. Yeah, that's good. That's really funny.
Yeah. I like that perspective of it too. But.
Yeah, totally. The inside perspective. I wasn't even thinking about the work.
Me neither.
And as I said at the beginning, half the people in our little town where I am right now, you know, were roadies for the Grateful Dead.
That's amazing.
So much work.
A lot of roadies around.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we have 2 more of these. Danica, you want to read the next one?
All right. Would you rather write an article about the first concert you ever attended or write an article about the most recent concert you ever attended?
Well, you know, I'm laughing. It made me laugh because I realized that book, Loudmouth, has got all the concerts, right? A bunch of the first concerts I went to and all that shit. I was gonna say definitely the most recent concert because I'm kind of anti nostalgia. I try to keep moving in my life, and then I think, oh wait, the book is all lots of nostalgia. I'm sorry, I violated my own principles. But so I would rather rather think about and know about and learn about, you know, some new band or new kind of music than have to go back and hash over my previous life, which has now been thoroughly hashed over in that book, Loudmouth.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the next concert that I'm going to is Megadeth. I think they're still coming down here in October.
Really? I thought they went away.
No.
They've come back. Dave Mustaine has reconvened Megadeth.
I believe so, yeah.
According to the other Dave, who was on our show.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the most recent concert that you attended? Do you remember pre-pandemic or?
Shit. I should know this. Because I go fairly often, and I go, you know, when we were doing, and we aren't doing them at the moment, of course, when we were doing lots of concerts at our, you know, we did like 60 shows at our company on our roof and stuff. And so I used to go to clubs all the time looking for bands and, you know, looking for cool bands too. The last concert, I told you about the guy who had the Boy Howdy tattoo, whose name is Morgan Geary, lives in Asheville. That's probably the last concert I went to. Was he performs as Drunken Prayer. He's a great songwriter, great singer, and he performs with the Handsome Family and Freakwater and kind of some of those Americana bands. They're really, you know, good Americana bands, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going on tour for my new record," which was a great record, came out last year. He's got a new one coming soon. And he said, you still doing those rooftop concerts? I said, well, we're not doing them at the moment. And my business partners don't want to spend the money on the, which I'm just like throwing money away. They're like horrified. They wanted me to cut back on all that. So I said, but we're not doing them at the agency anymore, but I've been really thinking about doing something in my backyard, which is not a giant backyard. I said, if you'd be up for that, you know, and so Drunken Prayer came and performed in my backyard, and I have all this massive equipment that's from me playing in bands. So I have like a PA system and a monitor system, and so of course, this is my personality. I was like, God, I really miss the lights we had when we were up on the roof. So I went out and, of course, bought a whole lighting rig and so that was a lot. Drunken Prayer in Fairfax, California. I talked to him the other day, and I said, look, he's coming back west in June. I said, let's do it again, dude. We'll get vaccinated people to come.
That's right. And then he's also going to have the Robert Duncan and Lester Bangs tattoo on the other arm next time you see him, right? Awesome. Well, okay, we have one more Would You Rather. This is the final one. And let's see.
Now I'm nervous.
Okay.
All right.
Would you rather listen to Ace of Spades on repeat for 24 hours or listen to Just Like Heaven on repeat for 24 hours?
I want to stall theatrically, but I think I'd go for Ace of Spades,
Okay.
I mean, this is not something I want to spend my 24 hours doing, but you gave me a choice.
I did.
And I have to pick, and
that's the choice.
Yeah. I recognize the power of Motorhead and Lemmy, and Ace of Spades is a good song.
It is. Do you have any Lemmy stories?
Oh, nothing. We didn't hang out or anything. I remember seeing him. I went to one of the NAMM shows, the music manufacturers shows. Mm-hmm. You run into rock stars there. I ran into Lemmy and Gene Simmons and all sorts of people. But no, I never hung out with Lemmy, alas. I wish I'd make something up. Give me an hour and I'll make something up.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say I always love hearing like Dee Snider and Twisted Sister talk about Lemmy, and I mean Motorhead essentially helped their started their careers. He gave them an opportunity when a lot of people weren't giving people in makeup opportunities. So
did he? He gave Twisted Sister, because I knew the bass player or know the bass player. Are they still extant? But Mark the Animal, who was in Twisted Sister, was the bass player, and he before he was in Twisted Sister, he was in the Dictators.
Okay.
Who were, I would argue, the original punk band, and they became great friends of ours.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, seeing as we reached an hour, we were trying to go for 6 hours, but I think we'll keep it to a cool hour so we can have you back again. Your stories have been so incredible to
Fantastic.
listen to. But before we do wrap this up, is there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? Anything you want to plug? Anything else you want to tell us? We're all ears.
I'll plug my book. There's, and I made up my neat little
I love it.
Display
on a music stand, is it?
Yeah, on a music stand.
Okay.
Because I was trying to figure out how to pile them up, and then it was like, so this is become my podcast studio as well as my audio studio. But so I'd plug Loudmouth. I mean, that's the only thing I really have to plug until 10 years from now when the movie comes out, and my children will be plugging the movie, and you guys will be on the red carpet in my hat.
We're there.
Loudmouth is available at Amazon, and if you hate Amazon, it's available at bookshop.org, which is the indie kind of consortium, and it's everywhere. And there's an audiobook also available at Amazon and at
read by Fran Drescher, yes,
and at Apple Books, and it's the audiobook's pretty cool. It's sold many more print books, but people should get onto that audiobook. And then
how long did that
take? Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it took me 2 or 3 weeks to record it. In the studio, but then I made the fatal error. Don't ever do this, kids. I edited it myself. I thought, I know how to. I'm a software guy. I mean, I use audio software all the time, but it was like, don't ever, whatever, no matter how much money anybody offers you. And by the way, there was no extra money for me to edit it. I just thought, well, that'll give me control because I'm also a control freak, and that took me, like 3 months or something. It was the worst goddamn thing. And I had to eventually get my another musician friend involved. I had to hand it off to him, and he mastered it. So yeah, I have a website that's Duncan Writes, like writes, not not civil rights or anything. Right. Duncan Writes, DUNCAN Writes.com. And, it has links to all places you can buy the book. It has pictures, and I think there's some video of me up there, but Jimmy Page saying hello to me. It's a 10-second video, very exciting, and saying hello, Bob. And it was like, I said, I gotta put that on my website. And lots of old photos, and the song where the backpack guitar, I think it's on there, sounds like a banjo, and that's kind of all about me. That place now it's mostly all about Loudmouth. It's got other shit in it, and eventually I'll put other more non-Loudmouth stuff in it. But anyways, it's fun, and you could even contact me from there.
DuncanWrites.com. Everyone go check it out.
Right.
Buy the
book.
Right. Right. Duncan Writes.
Right. Although I never write like that. I always write like that.
Fair enough. Well, before we do wrap this up, we just want to plug our upcoming guests that we have coming up for the rest of April. So on Thursday, we have Ace Vaughn Johnson. He's our next guest. He's from Faster Pussycat, the LA Guns. Next Tuesday, we have Brett Azar. He's from NBC's Young Rock. He actually plays the Sheik. He plays the Iron Sheik. Next Thursday, we have Harvard of the South. And then we actually have a bonus show. We have Herman from Herman's Hermits. We have Peter, which we're so thrilled. We're very excited. Freaking out. Then next Tuesday, we have Vinny Dombrowski from Sponge. Then we have Casey Jost from Practical Jokers. And we're ending the month with Amy Asbeck, who is from Robin Hood Men in Tights, Tights. And that'll be fun. We got a lot of wonderful stuff. Robert, we have to have you back. I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
My brain is still just reeling from
you guys are so much fun. What a great, cool show. When I've been so impressed. So.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much.
Really fun.
It's been just a sincere honor, honestly. Yes. It's so cool to just be able to hear about the kinds of things that you've done and about the kind of people that you know. And it's just so cool.
Pushing Alex Chilton in the street. Hey, come on.
That's badass. I've never done that.
I didn't even tell you about carrying Farrah Fawcett and Liza Minnelli around on my shoulders.
Liza? We love Liza.
Well, Liza was a close friend of ours for a time. My childhood pal was married to her for 10 years.
Oh my God.
We did a lot of cocaine with Liza.
I'm shocked.
But yeah, I'll give you that. But my book is full of some of these wacky stories. Some of them are kind of sad, but then there's lots of, I try to make it funny. And I love it when somebody says to me, I'm spitting up laughing. And so that to me is fun.
Awesome.
So, but the stories are in there. You want to be rock and roll, how to waste your life.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Robert. This is truly an honor. You're a legend.
And thank you, ladies. I'm not at all. Remember, there's many of me. There's thousands of me in every state.
Fair enough. But we like you best.
Kid and Danica, you're the best.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, all right, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you on Thursday. Be safe, everybody. Bye.